MCSA 7412 exam module 1. Module 1 is implementing advanced network services. In this module, we're going to talk about DNS. DNS is a critical service that you require on your network for network resolution of names and internet resources. With DNS in Windows Server 2012, we have a DNS security extension, when we have different things such as securing your DNS response. We're going to talk about DHCP. We all know DHCP is used to manage and distribute IP addresses to client computers. DHCP can be used to manage IP-based networks. We're also going to talk about DHCP Failover here. The DHCP Failover, if your DHCP server goes online, you have another server which is on a standby that users can actually use to list IP address configuration. So in this module, we're going to look at advanced DHCP features and advanced DNS. Let's look at advanced DHCP. Lesson 1 is configuring advanced DHCP features. We're going to look at DHCP component overview. Okay, then we're going to look at configuring DHCP interaction with DNS. We're going to look at interaction of DHCP with IPv6. Now we have DHCP version 6. We also have DHCP version 4, which most people are familiar with, but we also have DHCP version 6. We're going to look at DHCP name protection. How you don't allow DHCP server, how you don't allow names to be overwritten. You don't allow your names to be overwritten. You're protecting that name. For example, you have a DHCP name that's registered in DNS, but then you have another DNS that's not Microsoft DNS that can override that name. You want to prevent that by using DHCP protection. Then we're going to look at DHCP failover. Alright, DHCP component overview. For example, DHCP is a server role that you would enable in Windows Server 2012. DHCP can ensure that all clients have the appropriate IP address without name conflict. No, without IP conflict, without IP conflict. Because without DHCP, you have to assign each individual user an IP address. Sometimes people can type the same IP address for 2 clients. Or you can mistakenly type an IP address. For example, if you want to type in 192.168, you want to type in 198.168. There will be disruption on the network. But by using DHCP, it's very easy for clients to get the right IP address configuration information without human error during configuration. A DHCP client is the one that will list the IP address and other network configuration info from a DHCP server. DHCP clients can include mobile devices, okay, such as tablets, phones. They can include other computers, laptop computers, switches, printers. Okay, let's look at DHCP components. Let's look at DHCP server service. When you install DHCP server role, which you install from Server Manager, after you install that, the DHCP server service is implemented. What this service will do, it can distribute or list IP address and other network configuration information to DHCP clients who request it. Then we have the DHCP scope. The administrator will specify in the DHCP scope the range of IP address and other related information that can be listed out to requesting DHCP clients. Each scope can include name and description. Okay, a range of IP addresses that will be distributed or listed out, subname mask. Scope can also have IP address that could be excluded from the list or list distribution. We call that exclusion range. you can actually specify an exclusion range. Also, the duration of the IP address lease. That's very important. Duration range, for example, the default for the duration of IP address lease in Windows is 8 days. You can make it shorter than that. You can make it longer. If you make it, for example, if you have mobile devices that if someone brings to the office today, they might not bring it again in a year or two, for example. If you have such an instance, you probably want to make the duration of IP address lease shorter, like 24 hours or 48 hours. Then DHCP options. DHCP option is also the IP configuration for your default gateway IP address, DNS IP address, DNS domain suffix, IP address for your Win server. Okay, this will be part of the DHCP options. Then we have our DHCP database. DHCP database contains configuration data about the DHCP server. Okay, and also stores information about the IP address that has been leased out or distributed. For example, your DHCP database files can be stored in system root, system32 DHCP folder. Then we have our DHCP console. DHCP console is this console that we have the snapping in that console that we can use to manage our DHCP. When you install the DHCP server role, that console is installed by default on that machine. Now, if you have other machines that are not DHCP, but you need DHCP console on them so you can use it to manage your DHCP server, you can install the DHCP console by installing the remote server administration tool. Now, we also I'm going to look at options like when client computers use DHCP. Well, client computers use DHCP when they come online and they need an IP address. They do a low-level broadcast. So broadcast, I use the concept DORA. First of all, the DHCP client will do a DHCP discover. That's where the D comes from. To DHCP servers. DHCP server will now offer IP address if you have more than one. Each one of them will offer IP address to a DHCP client. We call that DHCP offer. That's where they all come from. Then the DHCP client will pick one IP address, then send a DHCP request to the DHCP server and ask you that he wants to use a certain IP address. Now, what the DHCP server, most of them do, they will ping and make sure nobody else using the IP address. Then they will send an acknowledgement. We call that DHCP acknowledgement to the DHCP client, letting them know they can use that IP address. So IP addresses are requested through broadcast. Also, addresses are leased. When something is leased, what happens? You have to renew your lease, right? If you don't renew your lease, you have to release that thing. For example, if you lease an apartment, or if you lease a car, after the lease is up and you don't want to renew it, you have to give it up. The same thing with IP address configuration or other network configuration leased by DHCP. After a certain time, that IP address has to be released or renewed. If it's not renewed, it has to be released. Also, your DHCP has to be authorized in Active Directory domain services if you are part of a domain. If it's a standalone DHCP server, that's different. But DHCP server that's part of a domain or a forest has to be authorized in Active Directory domain services. And only a user with enterprise admin privilege or enterprise admin permission can authorize this in Active Directory. Now, let's look at DHCP interaction with DNS. Now, during dynamic IP address allocation, DHCP server will create resource record. Okay, and automatically register it in DNS. But you can also configure your DHCP server to register both A record and PTR record for your client computer. You can also configure your system that DHCP server owns that record. Because this is what happens. Sometimes when DHCP registers a record and PTR record in DNS, and what happened, that machine is off, that IP address expires and it was never renewed from DHCP, that record will just stay in DNS. But if you configure option 0A1, the DHCP server will remove that record from DNS. DHCP integration with IPv6. Well, we have DHCP version 4, then we have DHCP version 6. Version 6, DHCP supports both stateful and stateless configuration. What does that mean? With stateful configuration, the DHCP version 6 server assigns the IP address to the client along with other DHCP configuration data. With stateless configuration, this is when the subnet router and the client agree on the IPv6 address to be automatically generated to be given to clients. In this instance, the IPv6 address is built by using a network portion from the router and the host portion of the address which is generated by the client. Also, DHCP version 6 also supports scopes that configure the following properties such as name and distribution, just like our DHCP version 6 scope. Preferences. This have information on what server the DHCP clients will use if you have multiple DHCP servers. Or you are in a subnet, you have multiple DHCP servers. You will specify preference on what DHCP servers to be used by DHCP clients. Also, we have valid and preferred lifetimes. This will define how long list addresses are valid. How long is the IP address is valid. Then we have stuff such as DHCP options also. Other options we include like the prefix, exclusions, and DHCP options. If you look at prefix, what prefix you're going to be using. Prefix actually define the network portion of the IP address. Exclusions, this can be single IP address or block of addresses that falls within the IPv6 prefix that will not be listed. These are excluded IP addresses. Then we have DHCP options, just like we have in IPv4. Could be IP address for default gateway, IP address for your DNS, Win server, on and on like that. The other thing we're going to talk about is DHCP name protection. DHCP name protection is one of the new features where we have in Windows Server 2012. This will prevent Windows operating system computers from having their DNS name registration overwritten by non-Windows operating system that have the same name. Let me give you an example. You have a name that was registered in DNS by DHCP server. Now you have, that's for Windows. Now we have Unix machines or Linux machine. You don't want them to register the same name. If the same name is registered in DNS, one of the machines will not be seen on the network. So that's why you use DHCP name protection, something you will configure. DHCP name protection use DHCP ID resource record to track the computer that originally requested that DNS names be registered in DNS. The DNS name protection can be configured at a network protocol level or at the scope level. DHCP Failover. DHCP Failover is a very important area. It's a very important feature that we have in Windows Server 2012. How does this work? Well, allow you to have two DHCP servers to list IP addresses, another optional network configuration info in the same subnet. That means you can have two DHCP server on the subnet. Remember, unique name is required for failover relationships. You require that. When you use DHCP failover, you can have hot standby mode and load sharing mode. Hot standby mode also have the secondary mode. One can be hot. For example, in this instance, if the DHCP server is listening to IP addresses, the hot standby is listening to an IP address. If the hot standby goes offline, the secondary server will take over. That way, users will not lose access to the DHCP server. Then we have the load sharing mode, which is the default mode. In load sharing mode, both servers supply IP address configuration to clients simultaneously. The server that responds to IP configuration requests, it depends on how you configure the distribution load. The default is 50-50. So with load sharing mode, you have two servers. First one that answers will give an IP address or listen IP address to a DHCP client. So we are in the mode we have hot standby and we have load